everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Mackenzie, and today we are going to be starting our first mini-series called Doecember. Now, it's obviously a play off the word December, and that's the month that we're doing this in, but the first case in this series is going to be on the Jane Arroyo Grande Doe. As you guys know, I stick to cases that are local as much as possible unless it is specifically requested by somebody, and although this case has been covered by a couple other small YouTubers, I do feel like it still needs to be covered again as she has still not been identified. I want to give a pre-warning that there is some graphic photos in here that are post-mortem, so I will warn you before the image comes up so that you can decide to skip over it, and the other ones are just drawings or life photographs, so those should not be disturbing. But the information that resides in this case is quite horrible, and it is very dark, and there's no other way to describe it besides disgusting. So if you guys are okay with all of that, and I'm so sorry if you're not, this case just might not be for you, but go ahead and subscribe and give the video a big thumbs up, and let's go ahead and jump into the case of the Jane Arroyo Grande Doe. It was October 5th of 1980 when Officer John Williams would be driving down State Route 146 on Sunday, his day off of work. It was near the Arroyo Grande Road that he noticed a body at about 9:20 p.m. on the side of the road. Officer Williams said that her body had obviously been posed there and that she was totally naked when he found her. He quickly called 911 to notify the on-station authorities of what he had discovered. We're gonna call her Arroyo just because it's easier. They quickly realized that Arroyo had been dumped at this site but murdered somewhere else, and her body had actually been washed. So the killer had tried to remove any DNA from themselves or anything that would lead to them being discovered, and they've obviously done a pretty good job because it's been 38 years now and no one has still figured out who our Jane Doe is or who killed her. Now we're going to be getting into the images of her, so if you are not okay with this, you're going to want to skip over the images because some of them are drawings, but one of them is a post-mortem photo to help identify her. She's described as between the ages of 13 to 25. To me, she does look on the younger side. I would assume under 18 years old. She's a white female between 5 foot and 5'4". A lot of people decide that she's about 5'2". She was between 98 and 110 pounds. She had light blondish brown hair, which I've also read was strawberry blonde, blue, green, or hazel eyes. Due to death and how your body deteriorates, it is going to be difficult to determine if they were blue or green. She has pierced ears, was a non-smoker, was naked as previously stated, and had silver nail polish on. She had one scar, which was a vaccination scar on her left bicep. The only items around the Jane Doe, considering she wasn't wearing any clothing, was a yellow or orange shower curtain that was near her body and has been taken for evidence. I'm going to get into the injuries now that Arroyo suffered, so if this is something, again, that is too dramatic for you, please go ahead and skip over this portion of the video. She suffered multiple head wounds, possibly with a hammer to the back of a skull and behind right ear, and 7 puncture-type stab wounds approximately 3 inches in depth to the left upper portion of her back. It was assumed for a long time that this was with a pickaxe, but it's really unknown what the weapon was. One of her lower teeth was knocked out from being punched multiple times in the face. There have been so many different possibilities of to who the Arroyo Grande Jane Doe could be, and her body has been exhumed 4 times in 2002, 2003, 2009, and most lately in 2016 to try and find something more of her as we progress in technology and as we're identifying all of these other Jane Does to hopefully get Arroyo her proper name. It's actually because of the Arroyo Grande Jane Doe that a cold case unit was opened by Michael Murray for Clark County, and although she hasn't been identified, that program has now identified over 80 people. So a lot of people think that now she has served this greater purpose because she has brought this closure to all these other people and their families, and that's a really great thing. Arroyo had some pretty expensive dental work that was done to her. She had different fillings and had a unique dental procedure done to her called a suture, which was used to straighten a tooth, and it's actually very, very expensive to get done. So they were expecting that someone would be able to identify her rather quickly, that either a dentist would be like, oh yeah, I did that on a young girl, or a family member because they assumed that she wasn't from an orphanage or anything because of these expensive dental procedures, and that she would have been loved and cared for by a family. But when no family came forward, the officer who found her, John Williams, paid for her funeral. And every year on the day that he found her, he goes to her grave with his wife and they give her flowers. He says that he wants her to have someone who loves her, someone who cares about her, and in all these years she's never left his mind, and that she is practically his family because he doesn't want her to be without someone who loves her. There's a couple different theories, of course, when it comes to Jane and John Doe's. There can be a million different things that happened, but we're going to discuss the top 3 right now. The first one is that she was killed by a family member, which is why nobody ever came forward, which makes sense. When I see cases of young children that haven't been identified, I can't help but assume it was a family member, because who isn't missing their 5-year-old? That could absolutely be the case here. Like I said, to me, she looks to be under the age of 18, possibly 15 or 16. And then something I hadn't yet discussed because I was waiting for this moment is that on her right forearm she had a small blue tattoo of an S, and it was done quite poorly and assumed to be done very closely before she had died. And so a lot of people actually think that Tony Spilato branded her, and he was a big guy in the mob in Las Vegas during this time, because the mob in Nevada was no joke in the 70s and 80s, and it's pretty scary to think about. And so it's possible that she was a product of human trafficking due to this and came from overseas, and that would explain why nobody could identify her dental work, or why no one has come forward, because her family doesn't know to look in America. I do wonder though if they've done any type of testing on her teeth, because I know in other Jane and John Doe cases they've tested the teeth and been able to tell where people were from just based off the water that they've drank in their entire lives. So there was someone who was found in North Carolina, and they knew that she was from Greece because of the water she'd always drank. And I mean, she still hasn't been identified, but then at least we know where to pinpoint that her family could be, and I haven't seen any sort of work like that done on Arroyo, which is a little bit weird, and I'm hoping that soon they're gonna do that. Some also believe that she is the victim of serial killer Stephen Peter Moran, who has 4 known victims, but is thought to have killed upwards of 48 girls in Texas, Colorado, and Nevada, but there's no evidence really to support this, just besides he was an active serial killer during the time, and he didn't admit to her killing before he died on death row in 1985. Now, in Arroyo's case, there is DNA that has been taken, and her dental records and fingerprints, hoping to one day help identify her. And due to this, we've been able to rule out other missing girls around the world that strike any sort of resemblance to Arroyo. Those who have been ruled out are Tracy King from Pennsylvania, Angela Meeker from Washington, Patricia Taylor from Oklahoma, Deborah Vowell from California, Cindy Hallman from Arizona, Carol Roberts from Florida, Deborah McCall from Illinois, Rosie Schlicker from Missouri, Marilyn Milligan from Missouri, Carla Corley from Alabama, Lorraine Ron from New Hampshire, Kimberly Doss from Florida, Terry Collier from California, Tamara Akers from Virginia, Suzanne Schultz from Florida, Melinda Creech from Indiana, Rachel Garden from New Hampshire, Cheryl Schurer from Missouri, Sandra Landrum from Georgia, and Sandra Butler from Nevada. But there's obviously still so many girls that it could possibly be, and I'm going to make a list now for you guys and show the images of the girls who are still in the possibility list of being Arroyo. Now please remember, Arroyo could be any of these girls, and she could also be none of these girls, but these girls have not been ruled out yet, and there's a lot of talk as to each of these girls possibly being Arroyo. We have Deborah Lynn Kidwell from California, Toni Marie Kavanaugh from Australia, Nadine Odell from Michigan, Christy Lynn Booth from Texas, Tina Fey Kemp from Delaware, Trenny Lynn Gibson from Tennessee, Deborah Prasholka from California, Janice Pocket from Connecticut, Patricia Zentner from Michigan, Sherry Jean Pickle from California, Patricia Gomez from California, Anne Marie Ellenwood from Oregon, Cindy Mae Brown from Minnesota, Star Joy Dodson from Pennsylvania, Brenda Cecilia Crowley from New York. Absolutely any of these girls could be Arroyo, and like I said, it could be anybody else. There are so many missing people all around the world, and 600,000 more go missing every year just in the United States. Jane and John Doe's always seem to wrench my heart because I can't imagine being that family member and thinking for all these years that your daughter has ran away or disappeared on you, and all this time she was a victim of trafficking or kidnapped or something, and her body's been dumped waiting for you to claim it all this time. If you have a family member who's missing, whether it's a cousin, an aunt, a sister, a roommate you haven't seen or talked to, a friend you haven't heard from in forever, I really, really recommend that you go onto Doe Network and look at the different people and see if any of them are your family member. There are so many drawings and so many unidentified people all over the country that need someone to identify them. The Doe Network uses drawings, so don't be afraid of seeing postmortem images if you're uncomfortable with that. And they also give you a little bit of background as to the person when they were found and what they look like. Just the state of Nevada alone has 73 John Does and 28 Jane Does. That is just insane, and there's every single state is covered on the Doe Network, and so many different countries, not only the United States, but Canada, Mexico, all over Europe, Australia, New Zealand. These are all covered on the Doe Network. So if you have anybody who's missing, please go and check them out on here. You might not see their face on the news because they went missing and ended up in Mexico, and you're never going to see that news story. So please go onto the Doe Network and try to find your missing loved one. Thank you guys so much for watching and learning about Jane Arroyo Grande Doe today. I hope that we can identify her soon in the future, as it's been 38 long years. Make sure you guys subscribe and give the video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for joining me in Doecember.